Thanks to Sophia Genovese for that interview. Let's return one last time to our virtual roundtable. Governor Michelle Lujan Grisham made public safety a priority this year. She announced more than 20 initiatives, and she talked about improving outcomes for people that could prevent crime. But Sean, what did lawmakers send her on guns? She had a lot of ideas. What happened?
Well, she had two ideas that end up on her desk, and even those ideas were amended and diluted in a way from their original proposals. Number one, you have now a 7-day waiting period to purchase a gun. That was originally proposed as a 14-day waiting period. The second bill that's out on her desk is the banning of weapons at polling places. And that was also amended to where if you have a concealed carry permit, you can actually take your gun and vote if you feel like you need to. So even with those gun bills that are on her desk that she is expected to sign, they were also, amended and diluted in a way that didn't get exactly what she wanted.
Yeah, and in terms of other kind of tough on crime ideas, she did get an increased penalty for second-degree murder. She did not get increased flexibility for prosecutors who want to hold people behind bars when they're accused of serious crimes. Now, Tripp, it's an election year. Do you think lawmakers are going to leave Santa Fe with something to brag about with what they've done on crime? And also, how important is that outside of the cities, really?
I mean, it really depends on who you're talking about as far as a lawmaker goes. If you're, in a rural district and you're basically, you've got a lot of constituents who are like, hey, we need our guns. We're in rural parts of the state. The 7-day waiting period, which some people in the urban, some progressives or people in the urban areas will go, that's a great big win. They might say, well, we don't need that, in rural parts of the state. Elsewhere, like I said, maybe in urban areas or more progressive leaning areas, that is a big win for people who are supportive of that stuff. Similar to the guns in the public places. I mean, let's face it, gun violence is a big issue here in New Mexico, as it is across the state. Every week, we just had something happen in Kansas City, this week, where there was a shooting. Every week, we, run around, we hear about news around gun violence. So I think it really depends on who you're talking to on election year and how they can use it in their platforms as they're running.
Not a massive liberal win, but not a massive conservative defeat either. Sean, thinking about some of the things the governor framed in her State of the State address in terms of the root causes of crime, she talked about the state's housing crisis, and they did get a little movement there, didn't they?
Yes, so the governor was also looking for another $500 million in investments to create more agencies within the state to develop money to invest in housing development. Now, that didn't go. That was also cut a little bit, but what she does have right now is about 175 million to go into an agency that will now look to develop ways to invest in development of homes for people who are not low income. Mostly the people in the middle don't make enough money to purchase a home, don't make enough or make more than to receive any type of subsidies. And so she's really trying to make this as a investment for developers to provide those homes and those options for home buyers. And that's going to be something we're going to have to follow. That's going to become another issue into next year as well.
Yeah, it's a real challenge for folks who are just starting out their careers now. The home prices have changed a lot. Sean, sticking with you for a minute, there was a bid to require paid family medical leave, and that failed at the end, but it looked like it was going to pass. What happened?
Well, looks and appearances are very important because this has had a very strong support from not only Senate leadership, but advocacy and lobbyist groups have been highly prominent in it. They bring in dozens, if not hundreds of people throughout the year to lobby on behalf of this. Workers, people who are general New Mexicans. And it failed on a very short vote. And similar to what we saw with some of the gun legislation, you have conservative Democrats in the state who are aligning themselves with Republicans in ways that they feel like not only will it support their rural ideals, but also their business interests. And you had several Democrats vote against the bill that did ultimately kill paid family medical leave.
Yeah, and I saw a lawmaker say, now I can't remember if it was Democrat or Republican, saying, what, my chamber is against this, the business community is really against this. How am I supposed to go home from Santa Fe and say that I did this to hurt the business community? And that's a tough call. Again, this was a 30-day session packed with non-budget related items. Advocates for modernizing the legislature, helping them do more, wanted longer sessions. They didn't get it. They wanted pay for state lawmakers. Didn't get it. What they did get was $6 million in the budget for paid staff. Tripp, what kind of difference do you think that will make?
I mean, I think it will help lawmakers. As we know, they're a volunteer; they're not paid a salary. Basically, the hope is that when you have professional year-round staff, that they can do a constituent work. Maybe they can help lawmakers do that. They also can do research for lawmakers. This is really important,
especially with the complexity of some of the bills we saw this session.
That's right. And what you have is with every legislative body, Congress, other state legislatures, lobbyists have a lot of influence. But when you have a volunteer legislature, lobbyists have even more, influence on writing bills, technical assistance. Possibly these professional staff might be able to maybe push up against that. Not saying that lobbyists are bad. They're part of the system. They've been part of the system since the founding of the country. But
you're right. Yeah. And, I had, as you know, Tripp, because both of you helped me, I had 14 UNM journalism students with me up at the session this year, and they learned a ton about the value of lobbyists and about the expertise that they have. So that's a strong point. A lot of lobbyists are former lawmakers. A lot of them have been there decades longer than any of the elected officials. So paid staff does have the potential to counteract some of that. Speaking of these lawmakers, a lot of state senators announced that they're retiring. At least 8. That's Tallman, Purtle, Schmiedes, McKenna, Griggs, Neville, Moores, and Jerry Ortiz-Pino. That's actually 20%, just about 20% of the state Senate that will be new next session. Over the past few years, we've seen a sea change in the makeup of the state house, right? It's now majority women, people of color, many younger people. Is this what's coming next for the state Senate? And what would that mean? Sean, what do you think?
Yes, to answer your question, that's exactly what it's going to be. We're going to see a whole new blend of makeup of what New Mexico is. New Mexico is completely different than so many other states, and we all know that through our diversity of just who we are as a people and our culture and everything, and that's going to be reflected in a lot of these spaces. Now, we will still see, because they are a volunteer legislature, a lot of people who are in prominent spots, who are lawyers, who can take the time to, volunteer for a month or 2 months out of a year to do this role, but they will come with the values that are going to be part of what New Mexico is. Now, some of those people that you mentioned are Republican representatives who represent very conservative districts that are flush with cash in the oil and gas industry. And so we may start seeing even more prominent oil and gas advocates who may have some sort of liberal social viewpoints on social policies, but are ultimately there to protect the industry that is funding all of this.
Tripp Jennings, one word: redistricting. How much change are we going to see in the Senate with these 8 seats?
I mean, that's a really interesting question, because I just learned that my senator is no longer my senator because of the redistricting. I just learned this during the session. So
now you're in Rio Rancho, so that is a potential swing, but the rest of these seats are pretty solid, aren't they?
Yeah, no, but you're right, because it's got you're exactly. Rio Rancho can, depending on how that district is fashioned, it will be a swing district. You're exactly right.
Last question here. Previewing the next session, we're going to have a bunch of changes. We're going to have new butts in seats. But what do you think are some of the issues that we're going to be talking about? Maybe things that didn't happen and are going to come back next session. Sean, what's on in your notebook for next session?
I think we're going to see paid family medical leave make another return. That's not going to end. I think we're going to see a lot of bills that were structured this year, like we talked about housing with the trust fund. That bill is establishing essentially an administrative office to develop how to invest that money and build it out. Now, next year, they're going to come back and ask for more money because now they have the infrastructure set up. So we're going to see a lot of these trust funds that have been discussed recently now turn into asking for more money to either keep it going or even adopt some of the programming and the programs that they are trying to do, and then get those funded in other ways. So while it is budget and we're spending the money, we're going to now see next session how you turn real money into something real, and that's what we're going to see a lot more next year.
Guys, I'm going to leave it there. Thank you so much for taking this time with us and for breaking it down and for your work over the last 30 days. Both you, Trip and Sean, and your teams, we really appreciate it.
Thank you.